Hello, my name is Patty Wompukdi, and thank you for tuning in to hear my presentation on resurfacing graphics. Every day we are bombarded with various types of visual communications. Some we will remember, others will blur into a collage of colors and shapes. As a designer or design student, you have to figure out how to stand apart from the visual clutter. And do you need to ask if you need to find a different approach to visual communication? And the answer is absolutely. So hopefully in this presentation, I will show you some great examples on how visual communicators are going beyond the paper's passive surface and resurfacing graphics. Visual communication has always been a process that involves both art and technology, and we could even see this in the earliest cave paintings in southern France, where the art part is obvious through the renderings of these animals. However, the technology part would be how they extracted the pigments from minerals and insects and other biological origins. This painting is an example of how man is giving comments and meaning to his surrounding. Thousands of years later, man is still commenting on his surrounding, as seen here by British street artist Banksy. There have been many artistic achievements, but I will only focus on one, which is paper. Paper emerged from China and traveled along the Silk Road until it arrived in Italy. There it was improved and elevated to an art form. Marbled paper, or art of the cloud, is still practiced almost exclusively in Florence today. Visual communicators use a lot of paper. We often use it to sketch and develop ideas, to print proofs, and the final piece. Discarded paper makes up about 28% of the entire waste stream in the U.S. Waste left behind is decomposing paper, which releases methane gas. Methane gas is 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Reducing this greenhouse gas will help slow down the climate change. Visual communicators are using their design sensibilities to be part of the solution as opposed to the problem. There is a growth in sustainable packaging. Threadless t-shirts sent their t-shirts in a package that could be manipulated into a hanger. Sunships created biodegradable bags. Momo uses environmentally friendly paper made out of resin and mineral powder. Other companies are investigating smaller ways to package their products. Currently, there are special papers that are infused with seeds that you can throw them out. You're actually planting them. Grass or flowers may grow. But what do you do with existing paper? One idea is to repurpose or upcycle. This one artist has upcycled telephone books by creating portraits and sculptures out of them. Here we have magazine pages turned into a rubbish bin or some bowls. The following visual communicators are using found and recycled materials for their art. Josh Goldstein, who we see here, is a New York-based artist. He photographs classic New York City bodega signs and then applies them to salvaged plywood that he finds around the city. Here is another Brooklyn-based design company, Records by Monkey. They repurpose vinyl records into the funky accessories that you see here, and a lot of their pieces are sold in many museum stores. There's a trend to move away from pulp-based paper and using electronic paper, sometimes called e-ink. Here we have an Esquire magazine that celebrated its 75th anniversary issue by using this technology of e-ink. The technology is very similar to the popular e-readers of today. These devices can be alluring, but they're missing something that only traditional books can give you. These devices can't give you the various sensory delights like traditional books. For example, the smell of an old classic, the crackling sound of a spine when you first open a new book, or a cover rich with texture. In a growing trend, designers and visual communicators are starting to unplug and apply their creative drive into items that have a haptic factor. Haptic is defined as a non-verbal communication understood via touching that encourages both physical and emotional response. Here's another great example of a piece that relates to the haptic factor. On the left-hand side is a colorful design that is actually a map of a neighborhood in New York City known as Dumbo. This is another example by the same designer. On the left-hand side is a map of Rome. On the right-hand side, Julia in California. She was inspired by her mother, who was losing her eyesight. She started this as an academic experiment in tactile wayfinding. Technology still plays a role, but more of a silent one. Nancy Stahl, a renowned illustrator known for her stamps on the bottom right here, uses a program to help her translate her designs. Here we see typography where it's normally set on paper gets new life when it dances like water. It floats around in this fountain and then trickles over the side and onto the floor. As it swirls around the floor, it finally climbs up to one of the two screen-covered arches on the wall. They form into a quotation by an influential thinker. There's about 800 of these quotations that gradually escape the fountain before the computer begins to repeat itself. Researchers at Akashima Laboratories have developed a device that uses waves to draw images on the surface of the water. The size of a kiddie pool, it uses 50 wave generators and will only last for a moment. The art you see here is created by Joshua Davis. He electronically generates composition with algorithms, and they form these fluid and intricate graphic patterns. Form follows function is a term we've heard before. This principle is typically applied to architecture and industrial design, but it's also relevant to print design. Form refers to how elements are composed on the page, and function is the purpose of the piece. But what happens to form follows function when the piece is no longer paper? The form is the object itself. However, function's role is now either the beauty or the ornamentation of the piece. Its success can be calculated by the aesthetic complexity of the object. The following slides will show how visual communicators show interesting graphics but not use paper. Here we have a t-shirt that comes with a pen, and you mark off the days that you've worn the t-shirt. In the end, you will get a custom graphic design tee. This sweatshirt helps define the meaning of kern, a typographic term that is used to define the spacing between letters. This rug is a really nice way to welcome guests into your home. We tell children not to draw on furniture, but look at these marks. They're rather fun. The materials on his walls are leather, and his only tools are scalpels and knives. This designer wanted a winter project. She took photos of various surfaces around the neighborhood to print them on a fabric for quilt making, a patchwork of community type thing. During the photo editing process, she accidentally printed some samples out on transparency, and when she saw the images, she realized that illuminating them would be far more interesting than making quilts out of them. This message board uses faux fur. You can create your own drawings or messages by dragging your finger with or against the grain of the fur. These are hand-cut biscuits used to create a tongue-in-cheek edible poster. It's really interesting how the typography looks burned into the skin of the fruit, almost like a tattoo. Edible business cards made out of dried meat for your die-hard outdoorsman. A great simple concept. I love how typography is used to suggest volume on this flat piece of glass. This campaign is titled, "Provide him with water, make him improved immediately. Please donate to the World Health Organization Drinking Water Project." This project, put together by German Street Art Collective and a creative team titled "Making the Invisible Visible," highlights the faces of 6 well-known individuals who have suffered unfortunate abuse regarding Human Rights Act. The portraits have been notched on several fences throughout Europe and can only be seen at selected viewing angles and are completely invisible when approaching them from the front. This was a master thesis project created by a student at the Art Center College of Design. This student used a complex array of perforations which allowed the light to pass through, creating shifting patterns, which during specific times of the day transform into various parts of a poem. The poem consists of 5 lines, with each line lasting about an hour. This is something you might see throughout the day. The following slides will be resurfacing graphics projects from my students. These are their guidelines. They are to choose one: self-promotion, promote a social cause, or an invitation. Whichever one they choose must communicate a message. A ceramic plate and a poster to bring awareness to food-deprived children. The student carved the Alzheimer's logo and the words backwards on the flip-flops so it would leave right-reading messages on the sand. The QR code directs you to the designer's website. An X-ray-like clock to remind people to get checked. How about saving gas by riding a board? A message for autism that is lit up with black light. A poem illustrated on canvas shoes. This student was inspired by Harry Potter. This student actually carved into the wooden spoon and then used it in a poster to promote the food program. A sparring mitt is used to bring awareness to domestic violence. A tote design. This student hopes to bring awareness to child exploitation. After completing the Resurfacing Graphics project, the following has been accomplished by the students. This concludes my presentation on Resurfacing Graphics. Thank you very much.